strive for the best, not just a DEI hire, not just a spot just because of my disability. No, I have a spot because I know what the hell I'm talking about. I have a spot because I've really been through some stuff and I know that I can help people.
Wow, guys, can you believe it? We're already over 20 episodes into Nick Speaks, but here's the truth. I couldn't have done it alone. The amazing team at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions has been with me every step of the way, from those early strategy sessions all the way to editing, promotion, and even helping me land guests. They've made it so all I have to do is show up, record, and focus on delivering the message. Kyle at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions tailors everything to your unique needs and is so creative to give you what you're looking for. But one thing's for sure, he gives 110% to help you create an incredible podcast. So if you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, now's the time. Hit the link in the show notes, set up a strategy session with Kyle, and get ready to take your podcast to the next level. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this new installment of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I'm your host, Nick Comstock. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here today on this episode of Nick Speaks. I'm so happy to have you here. Please like, follow, and share this podcast. And if you're on a podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, please give this podcast a good rating so that more people know about Nick Speaks. And if you are watching on YouTube and you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please do so. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you can get notified every time an episode of Nick Speaks drop every Tuesday at 7 a.m. So, you guys, I'm going to get right into today's show. And I'm going to say this. I honestly don't understand a lot of disabled people. And let me tell you why. You know, over the past couple weeks since President Trump became elected, I have watched disabled people absolutely lose their crap on social media. I mean, it has just been insane. People with disabilities are coming on and saying, oh my goodness, he ended diversity and inclusion programs. He doesn't care about people with disabilities. Oh my goodness, he's going to end Social Security and Medicaid and he's going to take it all away. And I'm like, okay, I understand the concern there, but let's go through diversity programs. What is a DEI hire? A DEI hire is someone that they hire to speak to a certain community because the person doing the hiring doesn't want to go into that community themselves or doesn't want to do anything within that community. They would rather find someone within that community for one reason. For two reasons. Number one, they don't have to go into that community that they don't like and want to deal with. And number two, it makes them and their company look good. So that's why they do these DEI hires. A DEI hire is someone who is hired based off their color or based off the fact that they go home and sleep with a guy instead of a woman or a woman instead of a guy. Or based off of the fact that, they live in a poor area and they need someone to represent the poor part of the community. It has nothing to do with bringing these communities' voices to the table, but it has everything to do with checking a box. And I have said this many times on my program here at Nick Speaks, and I've said this many times on my TikTok. If you're not following me, follow me at Nicolas Comstock. I don't want to get hired simply because I am disabled. I want to get hired. I want to be a part of projects because what I bring to the table is going to take the project or the company that I am with to the next level. Because you know what? What these DEI hires want to do is check a box, like I just said, but they don't really want to hear your opinion. They don't really care what you have to say. They're just checking a box. I'll give you a perfect example. I just posted this story on my TikTok uh, yesterday. Today's Friday, and of course, this airs on Tuesday. But I just posted this video on my TikTok the other day, and I talked about my DEI experience and how I was a victim of DEI. I'll give you the story. Back in 2017, I was living with my grandparents at the time in a county that's about an hour and 20 minutes away from where I am now. And we had moved to Ohio to get me better benefits so that I could have more of a life. We really moved because our pastor went to prison for sleeping with a 16-year-old, but my parents wanted to use me as a scapegoat anyway. So no, but one of the reasons we truly did move was so that I could have a better life. And so I was living with my grandparents at the time. At the end of 2017, I got a phone call from my case manager's supervisor at the county board of which I was enrolled in for services at the time. And they said, Nick, do you have a moment to talk? And I said, sure. They said, I have to close my door to talk to you. And I was like, oh crap, what did I do now? What caregiver filed a complaint against me now? And they're calling to get my side of the story because I've had that happen too. And she said, as you know, we have a new superintendent coming in to manage the board. I said, yes, I'm aware of that. And she said, the superintendent would like to invite you to become a board member, and you would be the first board member on our board of directors while also receiving services within a 50-year history. You guys, when I got that call and when I got that news, I cried. When I hung up the phone with the supervisor, I cried because finally somebody wanted to hear me. Somebody wanted to hear what I had to say. Somebody in power thought my opinion mattered. And so we went through the process. I was appointed to the county board by, I believe, the county commissioner, and I was sworn in as a board member. Well, this was a big deal because I was the first person receiving services from the county board while also being a board member within their 50-year history. No one else had done this yet. This was just on the beginning lines. Now in my state, I believe it is law to have someone represented on the board as a person with a disability in that county. And to tell you this, before I go on with this story, I will probably never do this again because of what I went through. So anyway, at the time in 2017, I was thrilled. Like I said, I cried. Somebody in power actually wants my opinion. They actually think my opinion matters, all that type of stuff. So I go through, I get on the board and I get sworn in, and I'm doing all kinds of local press. I mean, I'm doing newspaper interviews, I'm doing local TV interviews. I mean, I'm on I'm in Columbus Dispatch, which is the newspaper here. I mean, it was a really big deal. And all these reporters were asking me the same question. They said, Nick, what do you want to accomplish in your 40 years on the board? Because it was a 40-year appointment. And I would give them all the same answer. And I would say, well, I want to be a voice for people like myself who go through things with caregivers on a daily basis. And I want to be able to help give caregivers more of a voice. And I want the people to get a front row seat who give money into this organization, what goes on in the lives of people with disabilities. And that was the answer that I gave. And I said, I want to, give people a voice that may not have a voice. And so, and everybody said, oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Yes, we need something like that. And when you're being appointed to a board like this, you go into what's called an executive session with the board members. And there's a group of board members that get to, I think it's actually all the board members, all the current board members get to interview you in an executive session. And what an executive session is it's not open to the public. So not only the board and the person who the director of the board can be in this session. And so the board members asked me, they said, Nick, what do you want to accomplish on the board within your 4 years? And I said the same thing I just told you. I want to give people with disabilities in my situation or in similar situations a voice that feel like they may not have one. And I want to, try to figure out if we can get caregivers more money and all this type of stuff. And they said, oh, that's wonderful. We need it, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the midst of my press tour that I was going on, and it wasn't a real big press tour. It was a couple local TV stations, and I took pictures, and the agency gave, I think a couple local news stations, a press release. I'm not like Reba McEntire here, but I'm not going to ABC in New York, but it was a pretty big deal. So, I gave them the same answer. Well, after my press tour, I went in to the superintendent of the board and I said, I would really like to give a more sufficient answer to the press about what my 4 years on the board is going to look like. And, because they're telling me, they're asking me, what do you want to accomplish? And I've already said some things, and the superintendent of the board shocks me from this point on, and they say, you're not allowed to advocate as a board member. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You're just allowed to be a board member. At that point, I literally thought, and at some point within the process of this, I said, well, then why the hell am I here? And they never really answered my question. I take that back. They did. They answered my question with, well, I wanted to give you an opportunity to give back and realize that everything is not about you. And I'm like, well, duh. I just spent a press tour saying I want to be a voice for other people in my position. Of course, I know it's not about me. Duh. So shortly after that, I realized that, hey, they landed on I landed on the front page. They got their story, and I allowed them to use me as a token for 18 months because that's how long I stayed on the board. And then I moved to where I am right now. And I said, never again. I'm going to let that happen to me. Never again will I let that happen to me. That's why I'm telling people with disabilities to chill out when it comes to President Trump shutting down these programs. Because these DEI hires, the people who hired you, don't want to hear from you. They don't care. They just want a voice for your specific community so they don't have to deal with your specific community and they can put it on you. But when you come to try to bring real change, they're going to say, be quiet. We don't want to hear what you have to say. And I know that's true because that's what happens to me. Now, I was a volunteer. I was not hired. I did not make any money being on this board of directors. But I believe that because I was the first person with a disability, and the only reason I was appointed to that board was because I had a disability. It wasn't because they wanted my opinion. Because let's be honest, when you go into state offices and county boards to tell your opinion, if you start telling it too much, you get blacklisted. You get looked at as a difficult client. Because what these agencies want to do is give you the bare minimum of these services. And then you and I, who are disabled, are stuck making videos and podcasts complaining about them. But then we talk about shutting these programs down or cutting these programs, and people with disabilities freak out. They don't care about us. They don't care about you anyway, disabled person. You have to carve your own path out here. You have to do this. That's why I'm doing this Nick Speaks podcast, is because I'm trying to make a way to employ myself. Yes, I want to give a voice for people with disabilities. Yes, I want to make people laugh every day. But yeah, I need to make some extra money too, because Social Security and Medicaid and food stamps aren't cutting it. That's why I'm here. And I'm also here to show people with disabilities that this is possible. You don't have to stay on the tight shoes. You don't have to stay on the tight shoestring forever. You can make a difference, and you don't need Social Security and Medicaid waivers and DEI programs in order to get attention. Yes, it may be hard to do it yourself, and it gets exhausting. Last week, I did an interview with Tracy Gardner. If you haven't went and listened to that interview, go listen to it. We talked about how advocating for things that we know we should already have access to, not because we're entitled and we're disabled, but because we're normal human beings, also is exhausting. Being an advocate for yourself is exhausting. Listen, carving my own path is exhausting. You think it's easy filming a podcast every week? No, I have to sit here and try to go find guests for you guys. And if I don't find a guest, I have to come up with a topic to talk to you about for about 30 minutes or so. That's very tiring. And it's very hard to do, but I want to do it, and I'm glad to do it because I know it's all going to work out in the end if I continue to work hard and strive for the best, not just a DEI hire, not just a spot just because of my disability. No, I have a spot because I know what the hell I'm talking about. I have a spot because I've really been through some stuff and I know that I can help people. And once people see that I've been able to carve my own path, once people see that you've been able to carve your own path, they will come crawling to you. But let me just say this. You do not need DEI to make you success. Now, in my opinion, because I'm a Christian, you need God and hard work to make you a success. Like I told you a couple weeks ago on another podcast, if you don't want to put God in the picture, that's totally up to you. I don't know why you wouldn't. I can't imagine where I would be without my savior. But, you know, like I said, that's up to you. But you don't need these programs, these DEI programs, to give you a voice. You have your own voice. Like I said, they don't want to hear from you anyway. And stop freaking out, people with disabilities, about, oh, they're going to take away Medicaid and they're going to take away Social Security. Most of these programs, in fact, somebody told me on my TikTok the other day when I made the video about my DEI experience, that most of these programs are state funded, not federal funded. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't done any research. I thought there was a state level and a federal level. Any president, no matter what party they are, cannot wake up one day and say, I'm going to sign an executive order and cut Medicaid and cut Social Security. They can wake up and try to do that, but it's going to end up in court so fast, and it's going to be shut down so fast that they don't know they don't know what hit them. And, let's be honest. For those of you that are disabled and you're looking at starting your own business, and you're looking to be successful, why are you working so hard to hold on to a shoestring when you could be in a shoe factory? You could own the shoe factory, and you're sitting here holding on to a shoestring known as Social Security and Medicaid. And another thing that frustrates me when it comes to people with disabilities with this issue is that, they say, well, we don't want to be told how much money we can have, that we don't want to be told how much assets we can have. Listen to the name of the program that you're on. Listen to the first part of it. Social. It's a social program, meaning the government is telling you what to do because you're on their dime. So they're going to tell you how much money you can have. They're going to tell you what assets you can have and what assets you can't. That's why I'm striving so hard to get off of it. And that's never going to change. Now, I realize there are some people out there that have disabilities, that their disability is going to cause them never to be able to work. And I realized. So I believe that the funding cap of $2,000 needs to be raised, probably to, I said $20,000 earlier, or $10,000 in an earlier episode. I believe it needs to be raised to at least $150,000, if not to $250,000 to $1 million, because funerals are expensive and having a disability is expensive. My wheelchair is $30,000. If I didn't have my Medicaid, I don't know how I would pay for it. I really don't. But when you're looking into getting off of Social Security and Medicaid waivers, you want to be careful, because I just looked up the other day. I had a friend of mine look up on the phone. He didn't believe me that if I was going to go into private pay for caregivers, it was going to cost like $20,000 a month, upwards of $60,000 a year to do private pay for caregivers. And so, yes, I'm not saying go out here and make a bunch of money and lose all your benefits right away. No. What I am saying is you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have your Social Security, your Medicaid, and $1 million a year. Now I just said that it should be, the funding cap should be raised from $2,000 to possibly $1 million a year for those people who can't absolutely work. There's no way they can. They're too fragile. Something's wrong with them. to where they can't get out on a day-to-day basis anymore. There should be a program where they can save for their future with the money that they receive that is duly owed to them because they are truly disabled. There should be that program. But if there is a person like myself who is looking to carve my own path and do this on my own full time, I believe that the government needs to help support that, since there's all this, oh, we believe in the American dream. Not for people with disabilities, you don't. I've been told I'm unemployable and all this stuff by 2 states and 3 different counties. So you have to decide what you want, people with a disability. You have to decide, do I want my Social Security and Medicaid that is giving me meager services? Or do I want to get a job and carve my own path and make something of myself? You have to make that decision, but you can't have it both ways. And stop believing these Democrats. Stop believing the Democrat Party, because they are the ones that is going to come after you and say, hey, if you vote for this party, they're going to take away your Social Security. They're going to take away your Medicaid. They've been doing that for years. They know that that is the perfect tactic to use, because as much as I hate to admit it, people with disabilities are vulnerable and we depend on programs like Social Security and Medicaid. So when we hear things like the other party's going to cut programs, the other party's going to take it away, the other party's going to get rid of it altogether, the other party's getting rid of DEI, that means your employer doesn't have to keep you. Listen, if your employer doesn't want to keep you after they shut down a DEI program and that's how you got hired, then that should show you that your employer didn't want you in the first place and you were only a DEI hire, period. Are you tracking what I'm putting down? So, I mean, if your employer's going to let you go because of DEI, that means your employer sucks in the first place. Are we tracking? Are we tracking together today? I mean, so honestly, and that's what the Democrats do because they don't have anything else to go on. They know right where to go. They know the most vulnerable areas. They know to reach out to the poor. They know to reach out to the disabled. Because if it wasn't for programs like Social Security and Medicaid, I'll be honest with you, disabled people wouldn't be able to live. But you've never heard a Republican, at least I haven't in my lifetime, say, I'm going to take away Social Security. It's just not going to happen. Realize that it is a scare tactic. Now, are cuts going to happen to Social Security and Medicaid? Yes. I do believe cuts are going to happen to Social Security and Medicaid. And they should happen. I just got off the phone with somebody yesterday because there's something I'm trying to work on I'm trying to get a benefits analysis. And they said, Nick, well, I just heard today that they laid off 15,000 people at Social Security and they're planning more layoffs on Friday. By Friday, I'm meaning today. Like they said, we pre-taped this podcast and it'll be out on Tuesday. But, and do those people need to be laid off? Probably, because half those people aren't doing their job. I mean, when you call the Social Security Administration, if you don't call right at 9 a.m., you're lucky if you sit on the phone. You're lucky if you get a hold of somebody at all, much less you have to sit on the phone for 2.5, 3 hours. I've done it. And then they hang up on you after the 2.5 or 3 hours. 2.5 or 3 hours. I can't talk today for some reason. But so look, disabled people, this is what we need to do. We need to do this. Ready? Deep breath in, deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And we just need to chill because it's gonna be okay. From a Christian perspective, God has not fallen off the throne and he's never going to. God's got you. He's better than any DEI. He's better than any Social Security. He's better than any Medicaid program. He's better than any Medicaid waiver. He's got you. God won't let his children fall. I really hope that this program today for Nick Speaks has really helped some of you to calm down and just realize, hey, I can carve my own path. And I really hope that it's made you realize that DEI wants nothing to do with you. If you're disabled, if you're Black, if you're gay, they want nothing to do with you. All they want to do is check a box and give you a seat at their table so that they say they have your community representation, but they don't want to hear from you or your community. That's why you have to speak up, speak out, and speak loud. Because that's the only way these communities, the disabled community, the gay community, that's the only way these communities are going to be heard. Not being hired by some company who wants to be diverse and inclusive, but really speaking up from their life experiences and not letting anybody shut them. I hope this episode was an encouragement to you today. Make sure that you follow me on TikTok at Nicolas Comstock and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Nick Speaks, where you can type in my name, Nicolas Comstock, and you can follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can email me at nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com if you want to be on the show, or if you want to drop a note about today's show, or have me come speak at your event. I would love to come speak for you guys. So just reach out to me at nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com if you want to do any of those things, and I will see you next week. This is the Nick Speaks podcast. I am your host, Nicolas Comstock. This is the Nick Speaks podcast, dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. I will see you guys next week.